So we'll answer. Steve, please go ahead.
Grapple with when and how to open their states. What's the best advice from you on what they should do? How quickly?
Well, we
how
want them to do
slowly?
it. We recommend that they do it as quickly as possible, but safely. We want everyone to be safe. And I think you're seeing that. You're seeing a lot of governors get out and they want to open it up. Many are thinking about their school system. Not a long way to go in the school system right now for this season, for this year. But I think you'll see a lot of schools open up, even if it's for a very short period of time. I think it would be a good thing because, as you see, in terms of what this vicious virus goes after, young people seem to do very well. Young people seem to do very well. So I know that there are some governors that aren't necessarily ready to open up their states, but they may be ready to open up their school systems. We'll see. But that's their choice. But the word is safety. Okay? Rapid, but safety. Yeah, please. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for you regarding one of the members of your coronavirus task force, and that's Secretary of HHS Alex Azar.
Yeah.
On January the 28th, he was in the briefing room, and in the briefing room, he told reporters that for the individual American, the virus should not be an impact on their day-to-day life. 3 months later, more than 55,000 of our fellow Americans have now lost their lives. Mr. President, why is he still your top health advisor? Why is he still serving as the HHS secretary?
Well, I think it's a very unfair question because you have many great professionals. Some of them you have great respect for. And you have many people in the other party. You mentioned Alex Azar, but you have many people in the other party that have said the same thing and with even more confidence. So a lot of people didn't get that right. I was very fortunate, whether it was through luck or whatever, that we closed the border. We put a ban on China other than our citizens coming in. We had our citizens. You can't keep out American citizens. You know, gee, you can't come back into your country. That's a little tough to do, but we put a ban on China. That was very fortunate. But I could tell you that Nancy Pelosi was dancing in the streets in Chinatown. She wanted to go, let's go out and party. Now, that was late into February, so you don't mention that, but you could mention that. Go ahead. Any other? Please, go ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. President. He has not been in a briefing,
Yeah,
Mr.
please,
President,
stand up.
since April the 3rd. Does that show
You,
confidence? in
you
him?
should have no complaints, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, you retweeted someone who alleged that Democrats have quoted, quote, inflated the mortality rate of the coronavirus by underreporting the infection rate. Do you believe that's true, that there's some sort of conspiracy theory regarding the number of infections states are reporting?
Well, I can only say what we're doing. We're reporting very accurately. If you look at other countries are not. I mean, you can look at China, you can look at numerous countries where I don't think those are right numbers. I can only say what we're doing. It's very important to us to do very accurate reporting, and that's what we're doing. John, go ahead, please.
By retweeting that, Mr. President?
Thank you. Please.
Mr. President, I wanted to ask you about the payment protection plan, the CPP plan to help small businesses.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of concerns today with the website just not working. In fact, we heard from the American Bankers Association saying that they are deeply frustrated and that until it's fixed, American banks will not be able to help struggling small businesses. Do you know? Can you
Well,
give
I
an
just
update?
came out and I hadn't heard. I heard there was a glitch. We'll find out whether or not that's so. Certainly, it did work out very well for the original amount of money. This is the second amount, and I'll find out about that. We're relying on the banks to go out and do an accurate job. Yeah, please, in the back.
All the companies that get aid, Mr. President.
Well, I wouldn't mind doing that. I don't know what the legal status of something like that. I would like to do that, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not involved in that process, but I would certainly like to have it listed. I'd have to find out if there's a legal problem, but if there isn't, I would do it gladly. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Charlie Spearing, Breitbart News. And a majority of polls show that Americans blame China for the spread of the coronavirus, and yet they're taking advantage of the crisis to make the world more dependent on their supply chains. How do you hold China accountable, and how do you keep our country?
Well, Charlie, there are a lot of ways you can hold them accountable. We're doing very serious investigations, as you probably know, and we are not happy with China. We are not happy with that whole situation, because we believe it could have been stopped at the source. It could have been stopped quickly, and it wouldn't have spread all over the world. And we think that should have happened. So we'll let you know at the appropriate time, but we are doing serious investigations.
American businesses from relying on China for their supply chains? How do you fix that?
Well, we've already discussed that, and especially having to do with medical supplies and others. If you looked prior to this virus, the deficit was coming way down under my administration because I put massive tariffs on China. We took in tens of billions of dollars, gave some of it to the farmers who were unfairly targeted by China. Nobody's ever done that before. We never took in 10 cents from China. Now, all of a sudden, I think you know very well, we've taken in tens of billions of dollars. I helped the farmers by giving them 2 years ago $12 billion, all coming from China, and we had plenty left over, too. And then the following year, $16 billion. And this year, we're also going to help our farmers. But nobody's ever done a thing like that because they were targeted unfairly by China. So we're doing a very strong investigation, and we'll let you know what the result of that is. We should be able to get the answers to.
Mr. President,
Go ahead, please.
as you talk about potentially reopening up America again, as we see in the slides behind you, what data are you going to look at in the future to see if restrictions need to be reimposed?
Yeah, we're looking very much and reliant very much on the local areas, the governors. And that's been the way it has been for me, maybe not for everybody, but for me, that's the way it's been at the beginning. And from the beginning, the governors, some of them are doing an extraordinary job. Not all of them, but some of them. And I think all of them maybe have a chance to do that. Some will be a little bit different. The areas are much different. Manhattan is much different than Montana. You have a lot of different circumstances, and obviously, if you look at the virus, it hit some areas, hasn't hit very much other areas, not even at all, almost not at all. But the entire country has been infected. West Virginia is an example. I spoke to Jim Justice, the governor of West Virginia, and they were long before anything hit, and they had numerous deaths, even in West Virginia, and they were really the last one to be hit. So we're dealing with the governors. We had a really great call today, as I told you. Very, very solid. These were not complaining people. These were people that they had everything they needed. They had their ventilators. They have their testing. They see their testing is growing. They're growing their testing. We're helping them. We're getting them what they need. And that was a group I'm sure some of you were on the line, even though you weren't supposed to be. And I think you know what the result of that call was. Please go ahead.
Supply chain, sir?
Following up on Charlie's question on making China, holding them responsible, Germany sent a bill to China for $130 billion, 130 billion euros for the damages caused by the coronavirus. Would your administration look at doing the same?
Well, we could do something much easier than that. We have ways of doing things a lot easier than that. But Germany's looking at things, and we're looking at things, and we're talking about a lot more money than Germany's talking about. Yeah, please go ahead.
Mr. President,
We haven't determined the final amount yet.
Thank you, Mr.
It's
President.
very substantial. If you look at the world, this is worldwide damage. This is damage to the U.S., but this is damage to the world. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Attorney General William Barr directed federal prosecutors to watch out for state and local officials that might be violating the Constitution by some of their stay-at-home orders. What's the strategy there? Will the federal government sue local authorities?
Well, you'd have to ask Attorney General Barr, but I think he wants to see, like everybody, he wants to see people get back and wants to see people get back to work. He doesn't want people to be held up when there's no reason for doing it. In some cases, perhaps it's too strict. He wants to make sure people have their rights and they maintain their rights, very importantly. So a lot of people would agree with him, but you'd actually have to ask that question specifically from a legal standpoint to Attorney General Barr.
Federal government suing state
It would
officials?
depend on the state. It would depend on the circumstances of the state. Some states are, perhaps a little early, and some states are a little bit late. And the Attorney General, I read that, and I saw that, and frankly, the Attorney General doesn't want to have rights taken away because, there are some people, they're not allowed to open up a store, or they're going to lose their livelihood. And by the way, that causes death also, between all of the things that happen, and this has been a big study. The fact that people aren't allowed to have their freedom causes a tremendous amount of problems, including death. So that's what he's talking about. Please, in the back.
Maryland and other states, Governor Larry Hogan specifically said they've seen a spike in people using disinfectant after your comments last week. I know you said they were sarcastic.
I can't imagine why. I can't imagine why. Yeah.
Take any responsibility?
No,
if
I
someone
don't.
were
No,
to
I
die?
can't imagine. I can't imagine that. Yeah, go ahead, please.
President, Dr. Anthony Fauci says that we need to increase testing by double it at least, and so does the Rockefeller Foundation. When are we going to be doubling
Well,
testing?
it doesn't really matter what they say there, and we just left him. We just had a meeting, but because we're going to have much more than double it very soon. Now, there are big believers in testing, and then there are some governors that don't feel as strongly about it at all. You understand that. They feel much differently about it. But we're going with maximum testing because it's something we're very capable of doing. But we'll be much more than doubled. You know, Mike, I'd like you to answer that. We're going to be much higher than doubled on testing very shortly. Mike, please. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope the American people looking on today are as proud as the President and I are of the incredible public and private partnership that you heard from today. It was 2 months ago that we had done less than 10,000 tests for the coronavirus in the United States. But because the President brought together these incredible commercial labs, brought together the best-known retailers in America, now, Mr. President, we have 5.4 million tests. And as you said earlier today, we've done more than 200,000 tests in a single day. As we met with governors today, I sense the enthusiasm among governors for the way that testing is scaling all across the country. And we assured them on the call today that we're going to continue to directly partner with them to make sure that all of the resources you heard about today continue to be expanded. But I want to ask Admiral Giroir, who is literally working day in and day out with the governors, to describe some of the numbers for exactly where we will be. We're north of 5 million tests done now. It is remarkable to think of the pace of acceleration. But Admiral, maybe you could speak about exactly when we will reach the point that some of the experts say that they think we need to be at, whether that be 300,000 tests a day or 500,000 tests a day. But what's remarkable to me as a layperson, Mr. President, is because of this partnership you've forged, we're almost there, and we'll be there very, very soon for the American people. But everyone who is as anxious to see America reopen as this president and our entire administration are should know that the three-phased approach that the president outlined 10 days ago, we believe, and I believe increasingly governors understand around America, that we have a sufficient amount of testing today for every state that qualifies to enter phase one to begin to reopen their economies. But Mr. President, with your permission, I'll just ask Admiral Giroir to give some specific numbers about how quick, for all that we've done, how much more quickly you'll see an expansion of testing because of the partnership that you witnessed again here today.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President. The number of tests that need to be done depends on the state level. You understand that places where there's high virus circulating will need many, many more tests. Places that do not have high virus circulating may need less tests. But let's just assume Dr. Fauci was talking about a 4 million per month number, which was sort of a week ago where we are. So we will, according to the governor's plans for next month, we will easily double that 4 million number. We will have over 20 million swabs that we're going to send out. We will have over 15 million tubes of media. We have all the tests matched, machine to machine, in a focused area. We've gone state by state and understand that. And this is not even including what you just heard, the 5 million per month tests by LabCorp and Quest, or the point of care test by Abbott, or all the other tests that are out there. So in May, we are going to be doing more testing in this country. And people talk about South Korea a lot. The states with the least amount of testing will double the overall cumulative number per capita that South Korea has done in 4 months, to give you that understanding.
Go ahead, John.
Sure, this sounds incredibly promising. Walgreens, CVS with the drive-through tests, the diagnostics agencies. But we sat here in the Rose Garden back on March 13, and these companies were here, some other companies were here. By my count, only 69 drive-through test sites have been set up by the companies that were here. I'm wondering if you, and of course, Mr. Vice President, back in early March, you said we'd be at 4 million tests by the following week. We're just now got there in the last few days. So what have you learned about what went wrong a month and a half or over the last month and a half or 2 months, and what's going to go right now? What lessons have you learned from the mistakes over the last month and a half or so?
John, I appreciate the question, but it represents a misunderstanding on your part and frankly a lot of people in the public's part about the difference between having a test versus the ability to actually process the test. I mean, the truth was, when the president tapped me to lead the White House Coronavirus Task Force 2 months ago, we saw the production of lots of test kits going into the marketplace. But as the president has said many times, what he understood early on was the old system would never be able to process the tests at the massive volume that we would need in the midst of an epidemic. And that's why the president brought together these extraordinary commercial labs that you've heard from today, literally sat them down in the Roosevelt Room and said, we need you to turn all of your energies loose on doing the kind of high-speed testing that would be necessary for us to reach the numbers we're at today. And so there was no disconnect at all. There were lots of test kits out there, Admiral, and frankly, there still are today. There are literally millions of tests that could be run in the old-style, slow laboratory that are still conducting tests today, whether it be at the CDC or at state laboratories. But what the president brought about with this public-private partnership has brought us to the point where we've done 5.4 million tests to date, and literally you just heard that by next month we could be doing as many as 2 million tests a week all across the country to give the American people confidence that we can reopen and get our economy moving again.
So when you said 4 million tests 7 weeks ago, you were just talking about tests being sent out, not actually being completed? I'm a little confused.
John, I think precisely correct that in my first week on this job, we were informed that HHS, I believe IDT was the vendor, Admiral Giroir, that had distributed 1 million, was distributing another 4 million, and we believe they did. But again, those were tests that, frankly, but for the president's leadership, we'd still be waiting on those tests to be done in many cases, because they were tests that were designed to be run in the old laboratory model. But early on, at the president's direction, we brought in these incredible commercial labs. We partnered with these extraordinary retailers. And now we stand here today, literally one day last week, more than 200,000 tests in a single day. About the time that we were making those comments, we'd done less than 25,000 tests in the entire country. But we've met this moment with American ingenuity, with the incredible companies that are represented here, and we couldn't be more proud.
Follow-up, Mr.
I
President.
think it's very important to know, and this you can get from any other country, I think, if they're being honest. Not only do we have the most testing in the world by far, but we have by far the best testing. OAN, please go ahead.
Mr. President, thank you. As I'd like to switch gears and talk about General Flynn, there are reports circulating now that he may well be fully exonerated this week. If that were the case, is there any reason why you would not bring him back into the administration?
I will only say this. I think that General Flynn is a wonderful man. He had a wonderful career, and it was a disgrace what happened to General Flynn. Let's see what happens now. But what happened to General Flynn should never happen again in our country. What happened to other people should never happen again in our country. What happened to your President of the United States should never again be allowed to happen.
Mr. President.
Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, thank you. Today, one of your top economic advisors, Kevin Hassett, he said that the U.S. is likely to experience a 20 to 30% decline in the GDP in the second quarter, the worst since the Great Depression. Do you agree with that assessment?
I don't know, but I can tell you the third and the fourth quarter in particular are going to be, I think, spectacular. We were talking about it with the executives. I think we're going to have a phenomenal third quarter. Nobody, except one country can be held accountable for what happened. Nobody's blaming anybody here. We're looking at a group of people that should have stopped it at the source. But so what happens in second happens in second. What we are doing is, I think you're going to see a big rise in the third, but you're going to see an incredible fourth quarter, and you're going to have an incredible next year. I think you're going to have a recovery. Look, they were just telling me inside, and it's fact, I built the greatest economy with the help of 325 million people. I built the greatest economy in the history of the world. And one day, because of something that should have never been allowed to happen, we had to close our country. We had to close our economy. I built it. We had the best employment numbers and the best unemployment numbers for Hispanic American, for African American, for Asian American, for everybody. Best stock market numbers. And by the way, the stock market was up very substantially today. And people are seeing a lot of good things. A lot of very smart people investing in the stock market right now. It's at 24,000, approximately 24,000. And if you would have said, with the tragedy that this country had to endure and go through, with all of the death and the people that died and were so badly hurt by what happened, and you can only say God bless them, but if you would have said that our country would be in the position we're now, we're ready to move forward. We'll never forget loved ones. We'll never forget these great people that sacrificed for a reason of incompetence or something else other than incompetence, what happened at a point where they could have protected the whole world, not just us, the whole world. But we had the greatest economy ever in the history of our world, and I had to turn it off in order to get to a point where we are today. And now we're making a comeback, and I think we're going to have economically, from an economic standpoint, next year an unbelievable year. And I think that you're going to see a fantastic fourth quarter, and the third quarter will start to build. But the second quarter, obviously, you're going to have GDP lack of growth. I'm looking at the head of Walmart. What a job Walmart's done in going through something. I mean, they were doing yeoman's work, including getting us millions of really very, very protective outfits. And I mean, the job that Doug and Walmart did was incredible. Millions of outfits, and those are high quality. I've seen them. Those are high quality. That's what we need. So people have stepped up to the plate. I think we're going to have a really good, I think it's going to start building. I think it's going to build fast. I think it'll be a tremendous, tremendous comeback. And, you know, so I say, I built the greatest economy with all of the people that helped me and all of the people in this country. We built the greatest economy the world has ever seen, and we're going to do it again. And it's not going to be that long. Okay. Yes, please, go ahead.
Mr. President, opening up the country, how long will you keep up the travel restrictions for Europe?
Well, we're looking at that, and it depends on how long it's taking Europe to heal. Italy is starting to make a comeback. I'm very happy to see that with my friend, the Prime Minister. It's tragic what went on in Italy and Spain and France and Germany, frankly, and every country over there. It's tragic. But we'll be looking at what's happening in Europe, and certainly we want to do that, and they want to do it too. They want to do it very badly. Yeah?
Do you have any update on Kim Jong-un's health? Have you gotten any update on Kim Jong-un's health? Has he responded to your letter from March?
On Kim Jong-un? I can't tell you exactly. Yes, I do have a very good idea, but I can't talk about it now. I just wish him well. I've had a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un. If I weren't president, you'd be in war. You would have been in war with Korea. You would have been in war with North Korea if I wasn't president. That I can tell you. He expected that. That I can tell you. I hope he's fine. I do know how he's doing, relatively speaking. We will see. You'll probably be hearing in the not-too-distant future. All right, one or two more. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, a question about the 2020 election.
Yeah.
Your likely Democratic opponent, Joe Biden, recently suggested that you were considering changing the date of the election, that you might try something like that. That's my first question. The same
I
question
never
is-
even thought of changing the date of the election. Why would I do that? November 3rd. It's a good number. No, I look forward to that election, and that was just made-up propaganda, not by him, but by some of the many people that are working, writing little statements. I see all the time, statement made, you say so, statement made per Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe. He didn't make those statements, but somebody did. But they said he made it. No, let him know I'm not thinking about it at all, not at all. Okay, go ahead in the back, please.
Yeah, the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee came out with the fourth installment of its report. It concluded that Russia interfered in the 2016 elections and there was not political bias. Do you accept its conclusions?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen the report. Yeah, please, go ahead.
President, nice to see you. I think you have a good relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. But last Saturday, Senator Graham, he mentioned in the Fox News, he interviewed, he said...
He didn't say anything last Saturday.
Kim Jong-un...
Nobody knows where he is, so he obviously couldn't have said it. If you have this is breaking news.
Yes.
That Kim Jong-un made a statement on Saturday? I don't think so. Okay, go ahead. Let's do one more, please, in the back.
If an American president loses more Americans over the course of 6 weeks than died in the entirety of the Vietnam War, does he deserve to be reelected?
So, yeah, we've lost a lot of people, but if you look at what original projections were, 2.2 million, we're probably heading to 60,000, 70,000. It's far too many. One person is too many for this. And I think we've made a lot of really good decisions. The big decision was closing the border or doing the ban, people coming in from China, obviously other than American citizens, which had to come in. Can't say you can't come in, you can't come back to your country. I think we've made a lot of good decisions. I think that Mike Pence and the task force have done a fantastic job. I think that everybody working on the ventilators, you see what we've done there, have done unbelievable. The press doesn't talk about ventilators anymore. They just don't want to talk about them, and that's okay. But the reason they don't want to talk, that was a subject that nobody would get off of. They don't want to talk about them. We're in the same position on testing. We are lapping the world on testing, and the world is coming to us. As I said, they're coming to us saying, what are you doing? How do you do it? We're helping them. So, no, I think we've done a great job. And one person, I will say this, one person is too many. Thank you all very much.